And I've allowed about an hour. I think that's probably enough to give you a really good overview and a good flavour of what we can do and also how we can do it. Now, I think the key
Mm,
things is not just taking our word for it and here's some we've prepared earlier, but showing you, how reports can be actually put together and under your
yeah,
control, at your discretion, as and when you need. That's got to be
yeah,
part of the power experience for you.
yeah. So
Uh,
I think most of the time that I had with Neil and Anna, I was really focusing on the flow of the data and the flow of the technology really, and I could see that it could do the level of reporting that we wanted, but I didn't actually get to the point of looking at a report that we would want just to make sure that whatever we've got in our minds is actually
yes. Okay.
deliverable.
Okay. Well, should we split this into two sections then? If I just give you a very sort of thorough but conceptual and demonstration overview of the reporting capabilities, both in terms of where we allow you to have reports, how you can use them, but
Mm,
also show you how they are put together. I think, and then we can
mm,
second half we can talk about some of your specific requirements, key reports, and maybe have a quick
definitely.
workshop on how they might look. I don't promise to turn one round for you in half an hour or so, but certainly to give you a sense of the tool's flexibility and
Yeah.
capability, I think will be a good session. Okay, great. Um, Let me start then just with a little PowerPoint I've got. Here's only a 3-slide PowerPoint, so not onerous. I really just want to emphasize that you've seen the demonstrations of Compleat, as you say, that process, conveyor belt of a document going through
Mm,
workflow, becoming an order, receipted, potentially, and certainly invoice, match, and approval. The dashboards are designed to support users at every stage of that core process. And to that end, there are
mm,
3 kinds of dashboards that we've allow you to create and deploy. The first we call an on-demand dashboard. That's one where you would say, right, I need to know some information. I'm going into a meeting. Let me ask a question of the system. Let me find out how much I've spent on cans of Coke, bottles of tonic, whatever it might be, with which supplier. So, find information.
okay.
And again, there's a whole host of different scenarios, and I'll demonstrate some of those for you. The second kind of dashboard is a homepage, and this is where you would log into Compleat, and the first thing you can see, and it's the example you can see on screen here, the first thing you would see would be a kind of page full of KPIs, metrics, summary information, perhaps focusing the user on, what their priority task ought to be. This is an accounts payable
Yeah.
screen, looking at invoices outstanding by department, for example.
Mm,
And again, they can be designed and built and deployed to different groups of users with different roles, heads of department, finance people, um, uh, you know, members and so on, whoever's going to have access to the system. The
mm,
third kind of dashboard is, for me, perhaps the most exciting kind because it's quite an innovation. It's an embedded dashboard. And this is about pushing information to users relevant to where they are in a transaction at the time they're in
mm.
that transaction to support better decision making. We call that embedded dashboard. In the wider industry, you might have heard of embedded BI, embedded business
Yeah,
intelligence.
yeah. We've been working a bit with Microsoft Power BI actually.
Oh, yes, yes, yep.
So I've spent a lot of time with that in the last few months because it can kind of give us quite a lot of ease of access data for our managers. We're probably not untypical where you're holding a lot of data, but whenever a manager wants something, then it can be quite a cumbersome process to actually give them what they want. And so,
Uh-huh.
we've actually spent quite a lot of time in recent months designing dashboards for Power BI. So I've got I've got a bit of work on that in recent months.
Excellent, excellent. And I think that experience will be very relevant to understanding how to, construct queries and reports within the Compleat,
Mm.
dashboard designer environment. But equally, one of the things I would hope that we can enhance and add within Compleat is that this is available very much online, real time. Are your Power BI reports, are they being flushed through with data from Sage, from other solutions,
Well,
real
no,
time?
we do is we take data from our point of sale.
Uh-huh,
We put it into an access database
got
in
it.
our area to hold the data. And because access is great for finance people holding data, but it's not got the interface for the user,
Of
then
course.
the data coming from the interface into the Power BI gives the user a user interface.
Understand. Yeah.
Make
Nice solution. Nice solution. Yeah.
it,
Okay, good. Again, one of the things about Compleat, of course, is that we're trying to deliver is that whole experience being for users to not have, I mean, they will just go wherever you tell them to go for the information. And if they're incomplete, it will be spend related information, of course, and they'll either get it on demand, homepage, or embedded, or all three. The idea is it's just there. It's there 24/7. When they're incomplete, they need information. It's presented to them. Obviously, with your Access and your Power BI, there's a process you have to go through to grab the data out, transform it, and put it there. With the Compleat, that's taken care of.
how painful that becomes, and this sort of thing that is live information is
Exactly. Yeah.
it's great.
Exactly. Okay, good. So that's the kind of overview, and I think we're obviously talking in the same ballpark. Let me explain on the second slide how we actually build one of these particular dashboards. So if you imagine here is the complete data, just sat real time in its database being updated all the time, and over here on the right hand side is a report, a dashboard you want to view. What actually happens is in the background, we are doing a kind of, for purposes of performance, every time you update a transaction within Compleat, we move that data into a separate reporting database, separate reporting location. And the reason for that is to primarily, and well, exclusively to manage performance, so that if you've got people thrashing transactions through the system, you don't want them being slowed down because someone's doing 20,000 line report, for example. Yeah. So we just separate. It's all invisible to you guys in terms of behind the scenes. It just happens, but it gives us a different place to go to get the reporting data. But it very much happens every time a transaction is saved, amended, created. Then that is immediately copied across to the reporting system. What we have is the ability to present to you as a user, to create reports, a whole series of standard views of data. So we've normalized a lot of the data that's in our database structure to say, if you want commitments, if you want accruals, if you want list of purchase invoices, if you want, to look at user information, who's logged on, who's done what, we've normalized all of that into a series of what we call standard data points. It's like a data dictionary definition. So when you go to create a report, you don't interact with the database, but you interact with a logical layer that describes the database in real world terms. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you. What we can also do, though, behind the scenes, is if there's any kind of data structures, reporting inquiries that aren't immediately covered by our standard infrastructure, we can create what are called custom views. And we actually create those on the database layer itself, but then we create a new data point, and these data points are what you interact with. So it's like a tailored data dictionary that describes the complete data. So again, your experience would be, because we'd work on that with you through our consulting team, like your experience would be, I want to build a report on XYZ, and that would be available to you. The building steps, there are 4 building steps. The first is to, and this will be very familiar to you from Power BI, is to actually construct a query, which is to select data from a particular data point, potentially filter it by key values, date ranges, transaction types, suppliers, whatever, introduce sorting, and of course apply the security to determine who can access that. We're very conscious that we're an online real-time system, so we want to make sure that you have the ability to only allow people to access the data that they are authorized to do so. And that can be as open or as closed as you need it to be. So you construct a series of queries. Then once you have your queries, which of course return data, you then determine how you want that to be visualized by your users. So we have the concept of charts, and you can see on this example on the right, we have 3 charts. We have a grid in the top, which has rows and columns like a spreadsheet. Then we have a pie chart here on the left at the bottom, and on the right at the bottom we have a donut. So they're just different ways of visualizing the result of a query, and there are a whole series of those. And in those charts, you can also define, you might build a drill down from chart 1 to chart 2 to chart 3, which will take you through different queries and effectively run queries as you build drill downs, so that you can go from a high level aggregate view right the way down to individual detailed transactions and sub-aggregate views as well. Third element is the creation of a dashboard. And the definition of a dashboard is a grouping of charts. So here you can see this is a dashboard that has 3 chart components on it on the right-hand side. And you can create those and as many of those as you need to be deployed either on demand, either as homepage or as embedded dashboards according to the requirements you have. One of the key things that dashboards can also do is provide what we call a related filter. And the idea being, if you're in a requisition summary or an invoice approval screen, you're looking at, say, a particular supplier, the fact that you're on a screen with that supplier's details on it would be a filter that can be passed to a dashboard that allows you to only show records that relate to that supplier, potentially.
Sure.
So that tag, if you like, is applied as the filter automatically. We can also build dashboards where on demand you might want to say, I've got a supplier, bookers are on the phone, want to know the status of invoice 1234. So you can run a dashboard for only bookers by selecting from a drop-down list, and that's another dynamic related filter that can be applied. So that's, again, very flexible. You can create as many of those as you need. The final element is creating another level of security. You can have a level of security applied at the query when the query is run, but you can also have a level of security run by saying only Ken, only Rory, only Annabelle can have access to these dashboards. So you create groups of users and you provide access to certain dashboards for those groups of users, which then of course deploy into each user's user experience. And then, hey presto, the report's produced. And of course, once reports are produced, again, this is a definition from the chart design. You can specify if you want users to be able to drop out to Excel, drop out to PDF, perhaps the report, the chart that they're looking at, particularly for grid view visualizations. So that's the kind of the broad principles of this. If I refresh you by running a few examples, are there any questions on that? Does that make sense?
I know.
Good. Okay. And again, do stop me at any stage if you say what you're talking about, or can slow down or go into more detail. So again, here's a view of the complete system. If I go into, actually I'll log in as a different user. If I first of all show you a homepage dashboard, so if I log in as the finance user, you have 2 options for a user login homepage experience. The first example you saw was a navigation-based homepage with those purple menu tiles. And of course, because the menu bar is available across the top, in this case, this user who's in our finance team has opted to have a busy dashboard full of information that will drive his key priority activities. In this case, we're looking at invoices outstanding by department, and the first view on the right here is a quantity, so we're aggregating by department the number of invoices that have been issued for approval to these departments and counting them and presenting a simple pie chart. Think of any of the data within Compleat that you might want to aggregate. How much have I spent on produce, fishmongery, cheese, replacement crockery, ticketing, materials, whatever it would be, then any data can be aggregated from the complete transaction records. And once you have...
Can I ask you a question? What's the range of visualizations that you've got? So you've got a column graph, you've got a pie chart, have you got multiple of those, or is it?
Yes, no, absolutely. Well, it's finite. It's not an unlimited range. But, the key thing is pie charts and donuts, which obviously the donuts are the circular elements. We can also do the bar chart that you can see here at the bottom. We can do line charts as well. We also have gauges, so you can actually have a kind of a speedometer kind of gauge that will be presenting a single number. I'll show you different examples of those. A single number, but again, it's positioned on a relative gauge, and you can control traffic lighting for that. We can also present numbers, so just digits of numbers. So how many invoices? I've got 10 invoices. So we present the number 10, and again, apply traffic lighting, red, amber, green thresholds to that as well. Where we haven't yet gone as far is things like mapping, things like area graphs and scatter graphs, and some of the things you'd see in Excel as standard tools. We've purposefully gone for what we can...
Have like a table or like
in terms of...
if you just wanted to have a grid of numbers?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So for example, here on the left, this is just a grid showing key columns, and the rows are reflected by the data, and these could be aggregate data. Let me show you a couple of kind of quick examples. If I go to another dashboard, which is a project comparison of budget versus spend, this is looking at on the a grid of data showing project Edinburgh, Glasgow, Hull, the total value of budget, the total value of spend, and a calculation of sum remaining. If I drill down, it breaks down the total budget into categories, per the data, and it shows where I've spent. If I drill down into the spend, it takes me into the 4 transactions that make up that £2,000 worth of spend. Click on the hyperlink, it takes me into the transaction. So that is a kind of a grid of data that can be woven together and daisy chain of this drill down. On the right hand side is exactly the same information. So if we were to drill down on the Edinburgh, you see I'm just presenting it graphically, and I can drill down in the same way. So I've presented this one to show the different visualization options. So absolutely.
Yeah, but the visualizations don't move together, so they're sort of standing in isolation.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this is purely kind of our showroom view, yes. But if I was to click on here, you might expect that to change to Glasgow on the right. We've not yet implemented that function, but we are looking at it, because we see other BI tools like Power BI where you can have all the different components.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, and they're linked. So that there is some R&D work going on to look at that. I can't give you a definitive delivery time.
Yeah.
But the key thing here is obviously to design something that it will be clear and self-evident to your users how it would work. And if there was an assumption that if I click on the left-hand side, the right-hand side would dynamically change, then we don't deliver them that kind of experience. So they don't assume.
And so part of the implementation, you teach us how to create a dashboard, and then it's something that if we've got the skills, we can modify.
That's our absolute intention, is to pass that knowledge on to you. And in doing that, we have a library of standard dashboards, and from that library, you might pick a number that you would like to deploy. And we can show you how they can be very quickly, mapped onto your data, because of course, your project codes, your account codes in Sage, and departments and cost centers and projects, whichever elements you've got set up, will be different. So we just need to make sure that it's clearly understood. Then again, if you have any that you want to create that aren't in our standard library, we show you how to use the tools to actually create them. So and I'll move on to that in a second, just to show you the query and the charting and the dashboard and dashboard access capabilities. It's all very logical and indeed very straightforward. Let's go back to another example. If I show you the supplier account overview, in this one, we're able to say, let's say Teco Drive computers have just rung up. So I've typed in tech, and I can filter on Teco Drive. They want to know the status of their account. Here are these are very big, bold visualizations in this one, but there's a gauge showing me I've got 63 invoices pending approval from Teco Drive, and down here I've blended that with a grid to show that these are the 63 invoices outstanding, and I can see who sat with those, the IT manager, the IT director. And I can use filtering on the dashboards to say, okay, the invoice in question is 2611152, that's with the IT director. And again, click on here and I can be taken off to a view to look at that. So it's very interactive, and the purpose of setting this up in this particular way is to make it easy for you to present the view of data that you want to give your users. Over here is an example of a single digit or a single number, I should say, representation. So this is an amber warning about 17 invoices being under query. And if I, again, was to filter to a particular invoice, I can drill down, from that chart into the invoice, see the invoice on the left and the transaction details on the right, and review the fact that this invoice is broken the PO value, so it's gone for exceptional approval. There's a dispute that's been flagged by the approver, not happy with the delivery charge that's been added. If I just zoom in on that, the delivery charge, which wasn't ordered, etc. So again, you're blending in the use of dashboard information, not just to support that kind of look back business intelligence, which is very important, but also to support the operational activities of the process as transactions are routed through. Another on
that dashboard, do you see who the supplier is, or is that something that's not?
That's something that I've not built into this one, but I should have. What I'd expect to have is a kind of a row at the top which would show who the supplier is. But again, I hadn't done that. So if I was to, another supplier rings up, I would just refresh the dashboard view and choose a different supplier and say, like, let's look at Crown Venue Catering, click submit. And you'd see Crown Venue Catering at the top. That's my bad for not having included that in the dashboard. And you can see here there's 2 invoices under query and only 50 outstanding in total. But that's just something that would be built into the dashboard. Outstanding means not approved. So
okay.
Yeah, so we're saying these are invoices pending approval. So in our database, we have statuses that record where the transaction is at in the process flow. Here's an invoice that's been captured, registered, not yet routed for approval but not approved, approved, possibly approved and not yet paid in Sage, and we can capture all that information through our connection with Sage and present you with views of data and counts and aggregate sums of data, from all that information. So you can have a dashboard, say, with I've got 200 purchase orders outstanding. I've receipted 50 purchase orders this month. I've had invoices for 20 of them. That means my accruals outstanding are for 30 invoices, and you can have those valued depending on how sophisticated or straightforward you want to keep it. The key thing is you've got access to all the data, and you can determine how you want to present it. And as I say, we have a series of standard, and some of these are kind of enhanced, bespoke for our presentation, but they can also be as simple as show me a list of invoices that are awaiting approval. So here's a list of supplier invoices. There's the invoice reference. They're currently with these individuals throughout the organization, and I could find a particular invoice by putting a filter in. And there are 2 invoices with that partial code in, and you can see who they're sat with, marketing and IT. Equally, if I put that back to the full list, also easy to drop out to Excel. That's one of the chart options. So I can export that to Excel. Looking at my screens to see where that will open. Here we are. That's just opened in the screen below here. So if I drag that up, again, and of course, once it's in Excel, you can put it into your Power BI model. You can very easily manipulate it with pivots and so on. Let's move that out of the way. So that's the kind of the principle. If
Can you tell me a bit of? Sorry.
See, I was going to,
I'm keen to get on.
Go on to
is, budget variance reporting.
Oh yeah, sure.
To make sure that
So a number of ways in which that can be handled. I've shown you very briefly a view here of this kind of chart. Remember, it's 2 discrete charts, left and right. Here's the budget that's been aggregated for a project. That could equally be for an account code, and I'll show you another example in a moment. Total budget aggregate, total spend aggregate. I click into one of those records and I see my budget and see my spend, so I can see where I have any overruns, overlaps. I'm monitoring that as we go.
Excuse me, is there a part at the beginning where you're configuring it for the financial periods of the business?
Yes, absolutely. So if I show you another example, and this is a spend timeline, and in this case, I've got this by my kind of financial coding. So I'm looking at my structured account code here. I'm not linked to Sage today. I'm linked to Microsoft Dynamics Great Plains. So I have a structured account code department, nominal code, and project. By selecting that combination, and again, these are flexible, so you can choose by nominal code by department. This is now reflecting the data that has been brought into Compleat. So I have my budget from Sage and my expenditure within Compleat.
Okay, so in this case, this is calendar monthly?
This is literally your accounting periods. So whether you're accounting, are you accounting on retail or calendar months in the club?
4 weeks, 5.
4 weeks, 5 weeks. So we would reflect each of the periods from Sage would be reflected in your Compleat system, and every transaction, of course, will be stamped with its what we call commitment period. This is a transaction we expect for April or May or June or July and so on. So it will fall into the bucket, and the spend will be aggregated then against the budget for that equivalent period here. And again, these are just 2 visualizations of the same.
So is there a grouping level where you have like 5 nominal account codes, but you may have budgeted at a higher level than the nominal account code level?
Absolutely. The distinction here is not I mean, I'm looking at raw data because I'm trying to show that the principles and the concepts here. But this might be food, and you have food broken down into different categories: frozen, produce, etc. You may also have marketing, and that's broken down into direct marketing, advertising, events, promotions, and so on. But you might want to budget at a higher level. So again, that's just intrinsic within Compleat, that we create what are called budget definitions when it comes to budget checking as you create transactions. When it comes to reporting, you can report pretty much however you wish, because you're in control of how you aggregate the data, how you group budget data, group spend data together.
I think we would always be reporting at the account line level. So in our management accounts, which is the level that you're budgeting at, then we probably wouldn't be looking at actuals against budget at a nominal account level. It would be at that intermediate level.
Yes,
kind of
summary level, if you like. Yes. If you looked at a summary P&L,
More than anything in this session, I just wanted to be sure about all of that, because in so many systems that I looked at, you just don't get that level of granularity and flexibility in the reporting. And that was just the point I wanted to revisit on all of this.
Yeah, good.
Apart from the fact I just wanted a bit of idea of how the dashboards are created. It's just making sure that we're not missing a trick as far as what the eventual reporting would look like, because that's the thing that rules you out on a lot of purchase order systems, is that the reporting is just at a level that is obviously suited somebody, but doesn't suit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many of our kind of competitors, if that's the right word to use, kind of restrict themselves to listing type reports. Give me a list of orders, a list of orders that haven't been received, a list of invoices that I haven't had approved. And of course, we have to provide all those. They're operationally important.
Yeah, and it's no use to the managers at all. And it's this part here that, in terms of getting your payback on anything like this, it's just the fact that people can immediately see where they are with a relevant budget number.
Let me just take that one step further, and if we log in as a manager who's got invoices to approve and go into, let's find an invoice that's outstanding for approval. So here we can see I'm logged in as the IT manager, chap Phil. He's received an invoice to be approved. It's pending approval. If I go into this invoice, one of the things that is very powerful is embedded dashboards. So just think about that budget monitor that we've just looked at, spend versus budget by period. If we look down here, here's the invoice we're asking him to approve. Here's all the invoice capture information, links perhaps to orders if it was a matched transaction. Down here, we also have an embedded dashboard. Now in this scenario, we're asking him to look at a history of purchase orders, and total value approved with this supplier, the supplier's price history, so you can get a sense of, is this invoice looking about right? £150 for one of these. What is this? A poster. Is that right? What have I spent on posters in the past? So I could put in poster in here, and I'm pushing information about all the posters I bought from Management Services Group, to this manager before he decides to approve or not. If I just go back to my trays and change this embedded dashboard to a different dashboard, hold that budget check in mind, users can be given the choice of choosing different kinds of transactions. So if I go to my embedded IT spend check here and go on to save my settings and go back into my approvals, so I've now changed my background embedded dashboard, open up this poster invoice again. When I scroll down on the right hand side now, and I just make that a little bit smaller on the left so the invoice doesn't take up so much screen space. If I scroll down, you'll now see that we're doing a series of different kind of visualizations, because we're now not looking at the PO history and spend history. We've chosen instead to look at a 4-component dashboard, which is looking at spend for that supplier, yes, but also the budget. So again, I've put an extreme aggregation in here just to showcase the point. I'm being asked to approve an invoice for which no purchase order has been raised. This is what we call a direct invoice. My budget's been blown. I've got a $250,000 budget. I've spent $2 million so far. Clearly, I have a problem. That kind of visual budget monitoring is very, very powerful, to push information to users at different stages. So all driven from the dashboard and reporting tool.
Okay.
Okay. Um, give you a quick view on how easy it is to produce some of these reports and visualizations. If you've got time to see that, I appreciate I might have ticked all your boxes so
Yep.
far. Yeah, okay, good. Let's log on as an administrator. So the creation of the reports, if you like, from scratch is considered to be an admin function. It can be a function that's allocated to key users who, out with other admin functions, they can be given reporting creation access if you wish. And if I you can see this admin user has access to a lot of different kinds of dashboards. But to actually create reports, we go into the admin home, which is available as this menu option for an administrator. I don't know if Annabelle and Neil got into any detail with you about the back-end admin, but I won't dwell on much of this. This is where we set up all the rules, the configuration, the types of forms or layouts, the additional analysis fields you require, how you number orders, alerting, prompts, punch out to different supplier websites like Bookers and so on. You can maintain catalogs. You build your security roles, who can access what. You can process the workflow, what emails are generated, the approval chains within workflow, and so on. Right at the end here, we have the reporting. And these are the 4 steps I talked about in the PowerPoint. Designing a query, linking it to a visualization of a chart, designing it at the dashboard components, and then providing access. So it's multi-step. So we can build a series of queries. If we build a new query, I've got quite a number in here that I've been playing with that do different scenarios for me. But to add a new query, I simply choose one of these data sources or data points. So these are the data points that we have kind of built into our standard off-the-shelf data dictionary. If I wanted to look at invoice header, for example, select invoice header, and these are all the fields that are available for invoice header. So I can choose something like an approval date. I can choose the approver name, I can choose the currency code, I might choose the supplier, so I'll find the supplier information, do further down, do supplier code, supplier name, supplier reference, which is the invoice number, and I can choose the VAT values as well, and maybe a description. So when I click OK, this now confirms, are these the fields you want? And I can just say this is a report that's only for one of the companies. Compleat is multi-company. And we'll call this Rory Query Club 1, which is you guys. And you can specify here, you can see that we can apply security to the query. So it's only going to, when a user runs this in a subsequent dashboard, it will only return invoices that that user is allowed to see according to their general security infrastructure. So that's quite a powerful capability. If I save this, just confirms it's been saved, then I can test this to return, or just to confirm that the query is working and that we've got data being returned based on what I've selected. That all looks okay. Then I can go on to the next step. I can go on to the chart design. I'm doing a very simple example here. Add a new chart. And in adding a new chart, I can give it a name. We'll call this Rory Chart Club 1. And these are the choice of charts. So I can say I want it to be a grid, row and column. I want it to be a kind of a chart that will be a line or a bar chart, a single series, which will be again line or bar, or a single value, which I can put into a gauge or a digital number. So if I choose grid for this example, I can then choose here in this drop down the data I want. So if I choose my query, which is my Club 1 query, this will now start the process of visualizing how this is going to look. So there's the raw data that's been extracted from my system. Yeah. On the right hand side, I can now configure the chart. So I could say this is Club 1 invoices. Excuse my typing. And then I've got a series of functional buttons that I can choose to add or not. So do you want an automatic refresh button? Do you want it to automatically refresh after every 2 minutes so a user can sit there and watch it refresh? Do you want to pop it out from a corner of a dashboard to take up the full screen? Do you want to allow filters pop up, which allows you to filter from a dialog box? Do you want to introduce a drill down to another chart that will pass data from this chart to another chart? Do you want to allow sorting, export to Excel? Do you want to change the paging length, so it displays comfortably within a page? Do you want to allow grouping, so you can do totals and subtotals on different elements. And when a user finds a transaction reference link, do you want them to be able to click on that link and be taken to only read-only, to be taken to an active mode where they can, edit the invoice, be taken straight into the approval mode so they can approve the invoice from an inquiry, so it's that operational interaction again, or just view the invoice PDF, you view the invoice image. So there's lots of things you can do as you build these charts. If I click apply the properties that I've configured here to my chart, you can now see that I've got some additional elements here. What I'm also going to do is apply filtering, just so you can see as I change that tick box, we get a filter row added in here, so we've got control over different filtering capabilities. When I click save, that then appears as a saved chart, Rory chart Club 1. Next step would be to build it into a dashboard. And I can create a new dashboard, and we'll call this one Club 1. Invoices, maybe. And again, I've got a choice here. Is this standalone, i.e. on-demand dashboard, which I would run from the main menu, or is it an embedded dashboard that can be called and presented within a transaction summary screen? In order to actually configure charts into this, I go into this layout matrix, and I can build rows and columns to determine how many elements I want to have in my chart. And I'll just say we want one here. And if I go to my Rory chart Club 1, that's what I want to have in the 1-by-1 matrix in this report. And there is a preview of my dashboard. And if I again save this, dashboard now exists. And if I go into the dashboard access, I'm logged in as admin user. So if I go into my admin user, you can create as many of these as you need. If I go into add that report, double click to move it across to the available visible report side. When I come out of admin and go back to my main menu, I will now have the Club 1 invoices report to display.
Yeah.
So I'm very raw data in this example, but of course I can start filtering on this now and find invoices that have a particular reference number in and be taken off to them. So that's the kind of the principles of the system at its heart here.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think that's for me. Anything else you wanted to say?
I think no. From our point of view, I think we're at the stage where we believe you're comfortable. You've seen enough.
That's right. I just wanted to cover this last.
Yeah. No, but we're very much looking forward to working with you. You're a great name as an organisation, so we're looking forward to a successful project and getting underway as quickly as we can. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. But I think Neil's given you all the paperwork you need to sign and return. So one final.
I'll sign that now and I'll send it over to you.
Wonderful. Okay, Ken.
Get this one out.
That's grand. Well, we look forward to the project working. Thanks for your time and have a great weekend when you get there. Okay. Thanks a lot, Ken. All the very best.
Bye.
Take care.